Hello students, welcome to PRL 580 International Public Relations. It is week 1 and my name is Dr. Romo and I am excited to provide you with this lecture and serve as your professor this term. I wanted to give you a brief overview of some things to expect in the course. Like I said, my name is Dr. Romo. I am the program director for the Masters of Arts and Bachelor of Arts Communication Studies programs. I do teach here within the MAPR program as well. I have taught at CBU for 9 years. I'm currently in my 10th year here with the institution, and within that time I've taught in the undergrad and graduate public relations, journalism, new media, and communication studies program. I am excited to serve as your professor. If you need to get in touch with me, I am located in the Tyler Plaza campus across from the Galleria Mall in Riverside. You can access me through Suite 200. My office extension is listed here as well as my email. I am holding office hours this term from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Mondays and Tuesdays. Email is the best way to get in touch with me. The institution has a 24-hour turnaround time for replying to all emails. I typically reply a lot more quickly than that as I have it synced to my phone and things of that nature. So if you have an immediate concern, the best way to get in touch with me is email. I usually reply within hours. I do have some pictures here of my family just to sort of put a face to the voice and words you'll be interacting with from me this term. I've been married to my husband Mark for almost 12 years. We have 2 children. My son Nicholas is 10 and my daughter Emma is 8. We are avid Green Bay Packer fans and we love to just spend time together. I'm a Girl Scout troop leader as well. My husband coaches football and baseball for my son, and we are really just involved in our church and family and the community. So I just wanted to give you a face and some pictures so you can see, not that I'm just a voice overlording in the course, that I am a person. I'd love to get in touch with each of you if we can schedule a time to sit down and chat during the term. I find students get the most out of the course when they make a point and effort to get in touch with me either on the phone in person or through video conferencing to really bring some life to the course material. As we move through the basic understandings and expectations of the course, I really love to put this quote in here. We are a decidedly Christian university. We are providing you with a Christian higher education thought and learning process. And so with that, I really love what Holmes tells us about the idea of a Christian college. All life with its culture and learning must be penetrated with Christian perspectives if Jesus Christ is to be Lord of all. And so really when we get into this idea of international public relations, it's important to keep that in mind because a lot of times we are dealing with humans, and we know humans fall short of the glory, and human potential must be as fully developed as possible if the stewardship of his or her life is to honor God. The Christian has a mandate in education, and integration is ultimately concerned with seeing things from a wholly Christian perspective and to penetrate thought with that perspective into thinking Christianly. As we move through the syllabus, it is important to highlight a couple of things from it. Now, this is not the syllabus, obviously, but these are some things that I provide as a review in all of my courses. It may be news to you. I have 2 deadlines when it comes to discussion boards. So each week, if you have a discussion board, your original response, your answer to the post is due on Friday, and your replies are due on Sunday. It's very important that you make note of that because I will be grading you according to those standards. It's important also to keep in mind that you have to reply to at least 2 students in the discussion boards. Week 8 has different deadlines than the weeks 1 through 7, so make a note to go ahead and take a look at those deadlines now. Pop them in your calendar because it's important to know, especially if your term has holidays involved with that and things of that nature, that you make a note of that. Late work is not accepted under any circumstances. I provide a very hard and fast rule with that. It's important for you to work ahead and work early and plan accordingly for situations that may prevent you from submitting your work in a timely fashion. I create weekly lectures and notes. Those are required and embedded into the course content. It's expected that you spend a certain amount of time in the course each week at a graduate level of instruction. So it's really important that you watch all the lectures. There are going to be key updates and pertinent information in there that you may not see in other aspects of the course. So all lectures, video lectures at least, are created in YouTube. They're free, they're public and free for you to stream across any device, so that way you have a clear multimedia format in which you can watch it or listen. It's also expected that all assignments cite the course text and readings, and there's at least 2 outside sources for all assignments submitted. This is graduate work, so there's nothing that we should be presenting as our own ideas that is not supported with some type of source. One of the main things in developing scholarly thought, especially in this area of communication and public relations, is that if you have an idea, you've supported it with something that else you've read to show, look, I think this way about this topic, and so-and-so and so-and-so also thinks this way. So it's really important that you support your argument with sources to help you corroborate its effectiveness. Some things to expect. These are not screenshots from our course, but they're screenshots from a course. You have an action-oriented agenda that clearly tells you, our agenda looks a little different, but clearly tells you what you're reading and viewing and listening to this week. There are videos and readings that are expected every week. It's important you watch all of those videos and complete the work. Also, all lectures will be posted in the My Announcements section on Blackboard, so take a look for them there. They will also be deployed via email through Blackboard. So you could check your Lancer mail for the announcement email, or you could check the announcement section in Blackboard. If you have not accessed grades before, this may not apply to you if you have, but here's a review on how to access grades in Blackboard. You'll need to go to the My Grades tab in the menu column, click on that. Anything you've received a grade in will come up. The actual title of the grade is hyperlinked. Once the grade's been returned to you, click that and it'll open up your attempts. If you're not sure how to view feedback, you click your actual score, the actual number you received on the assignment. Once you do that, screen 3 pops up and it'll show you instructor feedback at the end of the submission, or you can click to view a rubric if there's one within there. If you need any help beyond that, let me know and I'll get you in touch with somebody that can provide you with valuable feedback. The week 1 agenda is listed here. We have 2 texts in this course. For those of you that are not aware, you do not have to purchase either of them. They are both available for you for free through the CBU online library. You can access the ebooks in their system for free. You may need to log in with your CBU credentials to download them and download chapters and such. So you do not need to purchase them. It is up to you if you'd like to. You may purchase them, but it's not required. So in the Curtin Gaither text, we're reading chapters 1 and 2. In the Golan text, we're also reading chapters 1 and 2. Both of these texts provide an introductory perspective in international PR, as well as what U.S. diplomacy is. Diplomacy, excuse me. So it's very important that you do that. It's also expected that you watch the lecture in your agenda. You have 3 assignments this week. One is a written assignment where you're providing a reflective response to some sources and such we'll get into later. Another one is a discussion board, and then the third one is a YouTube video introduction to submit to the discussion board as well. So in your video introduction, you need to record a YouTube video that, or it could be a Vimeo if you prefer not to use YouTube. That's an introduction so you can post it to the class so we can get to know you. Now, for some of you that have been in a lot of different MAPR courses, maybe you're towards the end of your MAPR career here at CBU, it's important for you to provide us with some new information about you so we can get to know you from that perspective. So don't look at this as another mundane way to introduce yourself to the course. Provide us with some information on who you are, where you're at in the program, as well as what you hope to get out of this type of course. Assignment number 1 asks you to write a 500-word essay explaining and describing best foot forward PR and business-driven practices in PR. So essentially, that's the theme of the essay, putting your best foot forward and business-driven practices. So what you're going to do is do an online search. I've attached a screenshot here of a brief search I did in the CBU online library of business public relations. And find some journal articles and search through news sources or social media sites and business articles that provide a link to international nonprofit business that is doing one of the public relations models described in the chapter. You can provide a link to the article or the company website, but more importantly, I'm looking for an APA paper that provides you with a 500-word essay explaining and describing the best practices for business-driven PR in an international setting. So you can see here's some that just briefly came up in my brief internet search. And this is supposed to be an introductory assignment to get your foot in the door and talking about international practices in PR. The discussion number 1, which is due on Friday, asks you, after reading Chapter 2 of the Golan text, to write a 300 to 500 word post explaining the connection between PR and diplomacy. It's very important that this can be based on the readings, but it should be your own opinion about the readings. This post should be at least 300 to 500 words. You have 2 replies due that are worth 250 words each, and those are due on Sunday. I'm going to get in now to some topics that are relevant to our discussion that we should be discussing. Before we get into the ideas of public relations and diplomacy, I wanted to talk about persuasion. And the reason why I wanted to give you some background into persuasion is you're going to see in a lot of the readings that we're doing this term and a lot of the videos we're watching and the assignments that one huge area in international public relations is persuasive communication. It's embedded into public relations as a whole, and it's even more paramount as we are developing international PR practices and working with those overseas and such. So there's 5 things to know that clearly define persuasion from a communicative perspective. Persuasion is a symbolic process. It involves an attempt to influence another, and people persuade themselves. The 4th thing is that persuasion involves the transmission of a message, and persuasion, for it to be ethical and not forceful, requires free choice. So we need to keep in mind that as we're looking to develop and analyzing persuasive communication, we need to think, 1, is this involved in a symbolic process and providing somebody with an information and attempt to influence them? Secondly, we need to think, we know people persuade themselves and that it involves a transmission of a message. So is this allowing them to have free choice? When you see that, you'll notice that rhetoric is embedded into this. And just to briefly give you an overview, because there is a lot of rhetorical aspects in PR that are used every day, is to understand that rhetoric is the purposeless use of messages to invite assent. Really meaning it's defined as a function, not by a communication medium, topic, or social location. It's a function of communication. It's not announced, acknowledged, or used by those that deny it and defame it. Rather, it's embedded into a linear communication process. So if we look at SMR, which is a huge part of disseminating information in public relations, we have a source, a message, and receiver. Rhetoric is providing the purpose use of messages to invite some type of assent and communication in a persuasive nature. We also need to know that public relations takes rhetoric to the next level in providing ritualistic communication. We are building and understanding that communication is not just about sending it across that linear perspective, just sending information to the receiver. Rather, public relations, strategic communication utilizes ritualistic communication in which we dialogue with one another, meaning our organization and our public, to not impart messages, but to build a ritual of communing with one another. It's that communication that goes back and forth where we have this open dialogue with our consumers, our public, those that we are interacting with. That's one of the most important aspects of international PR. We have to be able to build those relationships with our international audiences. We have to build that trust, that ritual of communicating with them in a culturally and societally appropriate manner. Reasoned action theory, it's not in the text, but it's one that provides a really good overview of how to do things like this. Reasoned action theory is explicitly concerned with behavior from a communicative perspective. This theory is recognizing that there are situations or factors that limit the influence of an attitude on behavior. So really it relies on 4 main concepts: that there are beliefs, attitudes, intention, and behavior in all types of reasoned actions related to communication. So if somebody has a belief about the outcome of behaviors, for example, they're saying that if I exercise, I will improve my health and maybe lose some weight. They have a specific attitude to the behavior based off of their outcome, the evaluation of that outcome. They know being healthy and slimmer are enjoyable and satisfying to me for whatever reason. The attitude to that specific behavior would be exercise would be a good thing for me to do. So they have a belief, they move that into an attitude, exercise would be a good thing to do, and then they have a behavioral intention. I'm going to start exercising, and then they have a result of that, an actual behavior where they begin exercising. We can see this type of persuasive in communication having influence on attitude and behavior within public relations, especially at the international level. And so those are some background things that I want to provide you before we get into diplomacy and things of that nature this term. Specifically speaking, public diplomacy is an original form of international public relations. Specifically, it tends to deal with government to people relations, but traditional diplomacy is viewed as government to government relations. Specifically speaking, governments communicate directly with people to another country. It's viewed as a soft power. It's not a hard, forceful power. It's one of those underlying tactics in terms of communicating with people in another country and building relations with them. So if we look back to reasoned action theories, we are trying to influence attitudes and behaviors to result in certain behaviors towards maybe people's perceptions of the U.S. or towards a country's perceptions of vaccines, because we're trying to help this underprivileged third world country become vaccinated and help them eradicate some type of major debilitating disease in their country. So with that, we can take some of the terms and the ideas of what diplomacy is and apply them to these theories like reasoned actions theories, or using some rhetorical knowledge of the nature of persuasive communication to help that happen. With that, it's important to know and see where public diplomacy and public relations intersect. Public relations, as we know, is a strategic communication process that is a function of management in an organization. So we're not talking here about international governmental relations. We're talking about international public relations, maybe from an organization that has no governmental ties to the public in another country. So if public relations is a strategic communication process that is a function of management within an organization, it's important that they understand their audience. So if they're taking their communication out of maybe the US and into a European country, it's important to know the societal and cultural norms of that country to apply that strategic communication process to get that ritualistic dialogue or that ritualistic experience of what communication is back and forth to one another. Public diplomacy typically lacks an understanding of how to communicate to achieve desirable objectives. Rather, they focus on some of that linear perspective that we were talking about in this slide here. Rather, they're providing a source to send a message to the public, which is their receiver. They're not really they're only looking communication as a transaction, not really looking at it beyond the impartation of messages. Rather, we want to help them as PR practitioners to see, look, we need to build this ritual with them and communing with them in a dialogue that is favorable to their perceptions of not only our company, but also towards their ideas of how they view specific things within their country. With social media today, we're able to do this a lot easier than we have been able to do in the past. So it's important to know that public diplomacy typically doesn't have a solid understanding and measurable understanding of how to communicate to achieve desirable objectives. Applying typical and standard public relations practices that we know from other courses we've taken in this program, or even we've applied in our own understanding and work experience, is if we can apply some of those models like RPI, the research, planning, implementation, evaluation model, or measurement of goals and objectives for communication objectives and goals in a PR campaign, can help public diplomacy in a much deeper way. We're providing them with some ways to have and achieve desirable objectives. Public relations typically offers insight into how communication can be used effectively within a diplomatic process. So we're not changing the way that diplomats communicate. Rather, what we're doing is we're applying some tried and true public relation practices to our new audience, which is in an international setting. And that's what you'll start to see this term as we move forward. It's very important that you keep in mind some of the ideas of rhetoric as we move into persuasive communication in this type of matter in public relations, as well as reasoned action theory. And we'll be reviewing this as we go through a lot of the material in the term this semester. Just to recap, we're reading chapters 1 and 2 of both course texts that are available in the CBU online library. We are completing assignment number 1, which is an essay about looking at business-driven PR best practices that we could apply it to international efforts. We're completing discussion board number 1, which deals with the connection between PR and diplomacy, as well as completing our YouTube introduction video. If you have any questions, let me know. I really look forward to interacting with you this term and would love to chat at any time if you have any specific questions related to the course content, or maybe just confused about some things or just need to chat. My door is always open. Just email me. I pray you all have a blessed week, and I look forward to interacting with you. God bless.